Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We are about ready to finish up our book review. So, after doing the presentation, we should have, let's see, I'm not going to be in the script. We should have our presentation, and we should also have our script. I'm going to scroll down to the script and highlight it, make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to be reading this in just a minute, so I'm going to make sure that I can read it without having to strain. In here, if you didn't have it set to 16 by 9, I don't think I instructed you to do that because while we're presenting, this actually fits the screen you're presenting on. But we're going to make this into a movie, and any movie anymore is in 16 by 9. And I want you to see what happens when I make this into 16 by 9. Notice the little boy there, what happens with him. All of a sudden he's put on a little bit of weight, he's widened out, this picture's wide, this fire is wide. It all makes it so it doesn't quite fit. The words are not quite lined up. Actually, they're lined up pretty well. Not too terrible. So what I'm going to do before I change it to 16 by 9 is I'm going to take this picture, and particularly this picture, that's probably the worst one. That's the one that needs the aspect ratio to be true the most. I'm going to cut that out, Command X to cut, and I'm going to go into Themes, 16 by 9. And now I'm going to paste that picture back in, and that way it keeps the true aspect ratio. It doesn't make him look too tall and skinny, or it doesn't make him look too wide. So I'm going to copy and paste that into this one. You can see the difference there. Did you see the difference between that and that? Pretty significant. So this looks like it fits all right. This is a little wider than it should be. So I might need to adjust that, make sure the picture's not terribly pixelated. Very wide fire, make sure it's centered, looks good. Alright, so 16 by 9, that's going to be important later. Make sure you do that, you don't miss that step. Now I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as pictures. And if I wanted to, I could have gone to File, Save as Pictures, right here. That would have been easy. But I'd rather have you go to File, Save As, because we need to learn that there are a lot of options for how to save it. And then also the preset settings allow this to be in higher resolution or a better quality picture than if you just go File, Save as Pictures. So I'm going to save this to the desktop. Easy place to store it temporarily. I'll remember it, I can find it, and then I can delete it later. Hit Save, and now I am done with this. It told me that it just made a folder that has all of the pictures, and it's right here. So I have my pictures, I have my script. Now we're going to jump into iMovie. In iMovie, more than likely, there's a possibility somebody else has used this and somebody else's project is here. If that's the case, just go to Projects and click OK, and then Create New. If that wasn't the case and it already looked like this, that's perfectly fine. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my slides, draw a box over top of all of them, click and drag them in. I have them all in, and then I'm going to record my script. So here is my microphone. Click on the microphone, and now I have the record button there. My script is ready to go right behind me. So I'm going to click record. It's going to give me a countdown, and then I'll go. Shh, be quiet. Here we go, ready. How long could you survive stranded, alone in the wilderness? Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulson. Will he survive, find food, or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. And then hit stop. And a couple things that you probably noticed there, I had a pause in between each section where I knew I was going to be changing a slide. You can see that with the volume level, where the higher the bar, the louder I am, and I have a break between each portion of where I know there's going to be a transition. Also, it took me a little while to find the stop button, so there's a little extra clicking noise at the end of me clicking through. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to get the double arrows and slide over until those are gone. Now we're going to listen to it, see how it lines up. There are a few things that are going to be wrong, and I'm showing you so we know how to fix them. Here we go. How long could you survive stranded, alone in the wilderness? Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. Will he survive, find food, or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. Okay, a couple things I want you to see. One, it zooms in and zooms out. I'm going to mute this so I don't constantly hear myself talking and I don't fight with myself. It zooms in and zooms out. It's called Ken Burns effect, famous for a guy on the History Channel who used to zoom in and zoom out on videos. It can be nice, but since I have this consistent background in my PowerPoints, I don't want that. It makes it a little bit nauseating, I guess. So I went up to the blue X up here, and instead of Ken Burns, I'm going to hit Fit and hit the check mark. Now, the reason this is important is it's now in 16 by 9. If we would have kept it in 4 by 3, there'd be little black lines on both sides that would be cut off. It would have black lines on each side. It's called window boxing, and it just wouldn't fit the full screen. It wouldn't look as nice. That's one thing that we need to do. After we do that, we need to line up the pictures with the audio. So we're going to go ahead and listen. How long could you survive stranded, alone in the wilderness? Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. Okay, so that lined up pretty well, but right here you can see where the lines are. That's where I say himself. That's where I want the slide to end. So I'm going to click on this. It says it's 4 seconds long. And I can click on I for info, and I can make it longer. We'll say it's 5 seconds and hit enter. And it looks like that lines up pretty well. Now, if I don't want to do that, another way I can reset it is clicking on the picture, and with a double arrow adjusting it back and forth until it fits real nicely. And we'll unmute and see how it looks. Defend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and okay, I'm going to drag it out just a tiny bit longer. Defend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet. Okay, it turned a little too soon. I highly recommend reading Hatchet. Okay, I want to say Hatchet right as it pops up, so you can see this line right here. When it spikes here into the yellow, that's where I say the word Hatchet. So I'm going to pull this out, and so it lines up just right. Maybe. Shot here. Action. I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. Will he survive? Okay, so when I say will he survive, I want that to be on the last slide. So we will drag that over. Will he survive, find food, or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. Okay, good. There's also just a little bit of background noise at the very end. I'm going to trim that off. And everything's lined up pretty well. So nothing makes a movie more than the audio. So I'm going to go up to audio. And it should be in GarageBand, but it's in Sound Effects. I don't know why. Some of these are going to have just exactly what it says, sound effects. So if you find something that fits whatever you're talking about, don't make so many sound effects that it's distracting. But if you find one or two that fit, go ahead and put them in. I'm not going to put in any, but I do want to add a background song. So depending on the music, you can completely change the mood of the book. So let's listen to a few. Sounds like Charlie Brown, right? Probably not something for a kid stranded alone in a wilderness. You should tell by the first few seconds whether or not it's a song that's going to work. Gosh, I'd say one of the last two would be the better fit so far, but so far none of them really are just perfect. And there are tons of songs, so it won't take too long. That one sounds a little bit more suspenseful. I think that one might fit pretty well. Down at the very bottom you see a little musical note. So I'm going to click and drag that down there and make sure it's below what you recorded, because it could replace it otherwise. And then I'm going to go to the very end, get the double arrows and drag it. Whoop, get the double arrows and drag it. And actually what I just did the first time, I'm going to move this back. That's a fade, and so it'll make it fade out. We don't want to do that. Okay, so volume is where the great green line is. I'm going to pull that down so it's in the background, and my voice is the main part. So here's what we have. How long could you survive stranded, alone in the wilderness? Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. Will he survive, find food, or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. Okay, so all lined up pretty well. I am going to drag this out just a tiny bit longer for the background noise, but not much. Let's see. Okay, so the reason I did that is at the very beginning we have an intro. This is the intro, Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. At the end we're going to say who the book review is by, so that's where you get credit for it. And we're going to do that using titles, and you can pick whatever you think is fitting. I probably wouldn't do the ridiculously long title credits like this. We only have by you, and so I'm just going to drag it in. Type in book review by Mr. Anand, and then I am done. We're going to make this short and sweet. The very end looks like this. Oh, we'll drag it out so it lines up with the end. To find out. Oops. To find out. Read to find out. And then I'm done, and that's it. So we're going to go to File, Share, and we're going to share the file and name it whatever the name of your book is. And then review by your name. And we can make this as high a resolution all the way up to 1080p. 720 is plenty high for what we'll be using it for. And then we hit next and save. And I don't know that I'm going to wait for the entire thing. We'll see how long it's going to be. There's a little circle up in the top right corner, and it's like a piece of pie, and it will slowly start moving as it starts saving. If you close out before it's done, it's not going to work. You'd close out too soon. That said, if you do close out, it automatically saves your progress down here. It won't save the video file. So right now I have a iMovie file. If I open it up, it would look exactly like I have here. As soon as this pie is filled in, I want to show that. It shows that it's on my desktop. Now it's a movie file. I could stick this on YouTube. I could stick it on a USB drive or whatever. As soon as I open it, it's going to be a video file. How long could you survive stranded, alone in the wilderness? All right, very good. So that's about it. Hand it into the classroom, and you are done.